If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Grab yourself a piping hot mug of Liberty. I'm Epic supporter Ace of Shame, and this is the Video Gamers Podcast.
Hello, fellow gamers! Welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. We are three lifelong gamer dads here to talk today about our personal top 5 favorite shooters of all time. Make sure to stick around. Should be a fun one. I am your host, Paul, and joining me for Christmas, he just wants an official Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle, but Santa told him no because he'll shoot his eye out. It's Josh.
Okay, first of all, my aim is impeccable. All right. And second of all, you guys should know that there is never friendly fire or collateral damage involved when I am playing.
Never. It's never happened.
Yeah.
All right. And then joining Josh and me, we might be in for a wild episode because he told me that his favorite all-time shooter is Shooter McGavin. It's Ryan.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? He told me he's going to meet me on the 9th green at 9 tonight. So I'm pretty excited.
I'll be at the Red Lobster, Shooter. I'll pay. I haven't seen Happy Gilmore in a while. It might be time for that
I watched
again.
it like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
it's so good.
Yeah.
You hit that guy. He shouldn't have been standing there.
Yeah.
All right. Before we start our top 5 shooter lists of all time, Josh, I think you've got a couple reviews to read.
I do have a couple reviews. First of all, thank you to every single person out there that has taken the time to leave us a review, to rate this show 5 stars on Spotify. You are doing just fantastic work out there to help us, get the word about the podcast out there. And when people leave us reviews, we love to just say thank you and read them on the show as well. This first one comes in from Jolio Cific CFK. And it's titled Awesome. And it says, "This is an awesome podcast. My family is absolutely obsessed. My dad even plays it on family road trips."
Oh, that's cool.
I love hearing
family.
that.
That's the coolest family right there.
Yeah. When I was a kid, maybe I've said this on the pod, but anytime we went on road trips, we would always take scenic routes and no one was allowed to listen to music. You had to appreciate the scenery. So any idea of like listening to pods or playing music as a family growing up was a no-go, but I'm all about it. I love putting on stuff like Jim Gaffigan or like family-friendly podcasts with our kids. You gotta have something to listen to on road trips.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do a thing where we rotate. Each person gets to pick a song. And so you just go around the car like over and over so people can pick which song they want to listen to. So,
well, yes, thank you so much. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Jolio CFK.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and then this next one comes in from the one and only lovely Lacey, and it's titled Gaming Pod for Everyone. And it says, "I'm a 46-year-old gamer who also happens to be a busy mom. Most gaming podcasts are absolutely not for me. This podcast is different. These guys are my people. Older, more mature hosts who don't need to drop F-bombs or trash talk more casual gamers to get their point across. The only thing that would make this pod better is including a gamer mom host. If you love games of all kinds, I highly recommend this podcast."
Whoa. Older, more mature. I don't know how I feel about this one.
Okay.
That's directed at me and Josh.
Well, I mean, I will say, lovely Lacey and I are the exact same age, so power to the veteran gamers, by the way.
I may be a little
Team
sensitive.
40.
I got some gray in my beard and my sideburns and stuff, so I'm a little touchy right now.
Yeah. Don't worry, Ryan. Your beard will grow in someday.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Lacey. What's funny is I've even joked with Josh that it would be great if we could have a female host. In our circles, we just don't know any women who game. It's none of our friends' wives really game other than like very casual stuff like Among Us. But I'm with you, Lacey. It would be great.
Dude, I got to say this too. I absolutely love this, where we have had more and more women gamers kind of like coming out of the lurking area on our Discord server. So shout out to Allie, not to put you on the spot, but we see you. Yeah, it's awesome to have you participating. I know we had Miss Jen, who is still around and listens to the show and lurks as well. But I mean, I absolutely love seeing this. So, you know, come join us. Don't be a lurker. Say hi. But yeah, nothing but mad respect.
Absolutely. All right. And then one last little bit of housekeeping. So we would love if our listeners would rate our show 5 stars. You can also follow us on socials at Video Gamers Pod. And then just a quick special announcement. For those who are not aware, we do rely on Patreon support in order to keep our show running. People can sign up. They get bonus episodes, all kinds of awesome perks over at multiplayersquad.com. And today, the special announcement is that 2 new supporters have signed up that we owe shout outs to. We want to say thank you so much to Riley the Bot and also Karazak, both of whom signed up with rare status. So a huge thank you to both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so guys, top 5 shooters of all time. This is a very broad category. There are about 7,000 nominees that I think anyone would be able to list in their top 5, and you wouldn't really bat an eye. It's also a little tricky because we talked a little bit about, like, how do we handle games that kind of skirt the line between genres? Like, does BioShock qualify as a shooter? What about the Deus Ex games? I don't know about you guys. I tried to keep mine relatively conventional, tried to stick with games where shooting is absolutely the first thing you think of when it comes to that game. I have a feeling we might have a little bit of overlap. We might hear a couple Halo entries or Battlefield entries.
Maybe.
I'll be very curious to hear. We might pick different entries, but maybe we'll cover some of these at the same time. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I should also mention that we are not trying to list the 5 shooters that we think are the best made or are like the critical darlings. These are our personal favorites. So it might be heavily skewed by nostalgia or whatever it may be, just games you spend a lot of time playing. So we're not trying to say these are necessarily the best 5, but they are our personal 5 favorite over time. So I wanted to kind of ask you guys as we start out here, would you say you're a fan of shooters? Like, is this one of your favorite genres, or what would you say?
For me, absolutely. I love the challenge of a good shooter. I love the action. I mean, I say it all the time, but I love chaos in my games. The more hectic they are and the more challenging they are, the more I tend to like them. If you give me that co-op nature or that competitive nature in a shooter as well, they will absolutely resonate with me. I was alive before the first shooter was ever on a gaming console or a PC. So when Doom and Wolfenstein came out, these had never been seen before, and they were mind-blowing. You know, to be able to kind of run around and just shoot monsters and stuff was like, this is one of the greatest things ever. And it birthed, I mean, quite possibly one of what is it? Shooters and RPGs? Would you say those are like the top 2 genres that exist in gaming?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
sure.
That would be my 2 first choices anyway. So, I mean, I love that we have these pure shooters like Call of Duty, and then we have these, I don't even know what you call them, like epic adventure story shooters like Half-Life 2. You know, or something like that, where it's still a core mechanic of the game, but there's so much more beyond that. So for me, shooters are absolutely one of my favorite genres.
Nice. Yeah, it's hard because I'm real big into like those action RPGs. I love a good story, but all of them that I love, all of my favorites, also have shooting. You know, Last of Us, Red Dead. You know, even though the gameplay is only like a 7 out of 10. For Josh, but
it's okay. The rest of the game's great.
But I mean, I was, growing up and in like the late 90s, early 2000s when shooters kind of really took off. That was my youth of just having no responsibilities and all the time in the world to play video games. So that really kind of put a foothold on my love for gaming and my love for shooters. So I think shooters for me is just that step above, just because that's what made me fall in love with games.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much there with you guys. I would say I definitely like RPGs more. I would say that's my number one genre. Shooters, I can really love as long as there's some kind of twist or grab with it. And maybe that's just having co-op or being able to play online in squads or whatever it might be. For me, the only kind of shooters I don't like is when it comes down to like Valorant, where it's just technical clicking and who has faster reflexes. To me, that's when I start to lose some of the entertainment value. So for me, I prefer when you have shooters that also have something else with it, whether it's using certain abilities or a good story, just something else to go along with it. All right, so let's go ahead and start sharing our lists. The way we're going to do this is, by the way, do you guys have them in order from 5 to 1, or do you just have them in
I just
no
have
particular?
them in order. Dude, number one, asking me to pick 5 and only 5 was a Herculean effort for me. I'm still staring down a list of 10, and I really don't know how I'm going to decide amongst these 10 which ones I want to talk about. There's a few that I know for sure, but this is hard for me, man.
Got some Sophie's Choices coming up. All right. So I have mine in order. However, whatever order you guys want to share is perfectly fine. We'll just go around in a circle. You can share your first game. The other two can say if they have that on their list or not. Then we'll spend a couple minutes talking about it, go around until we have shared all 5. So, Ryan, do you want the honors? Do you want to go first here?
Sure, I'll take it. So we're going to start off with just coming out the box hot. We're gonna go with an all-time banger that honestly made one of the biggest impacts in shooters and the whole genre for the last 2.5 decades. I'm gonna go with Counter-Strike, OG Counter-Strike, CS 1.5. That was the right in the heyday for me. Like I said, when I was kind of growing up, I graduated in 06, so those early 2000s were my teen years. And we used to go and play at a cyber cafe. We'd go and all of us after school would all walk there. We'd get candy and drinks and whatever and just play for hours until we had to go home and then go play more at home. Playing in clans, doing all that stuff. There was just something about that game that just clicked and you could play and not get tired on the same map for 3-4 hours straight. So there's just too much nostalgia and just great memories of gaming with Counter-Strike.
Dude, I was going to say, I played a heck of a lot of Counter-Strike back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is one of the most pure shooters that I can think of. I mean, Call of Duty is another one, Battlefield's another one, but it's like when you think of like what is just the core of like the shooter genre, those are the ones that jump to mind instantly for me. And Counter-Strike was one of those games that was insanely fun to play and at the same time might have led to some of the most frustrating moments in a game too.
Oh, yeah.
So but yeah, I'm with you. I played the original Counter-Strike. Then it was 1.6 and then Source and then Go and then 2. Now we have 2 and I mean they haven't changed, let's be honest.
No, yeah.
And it just works so well for esports. Like it's fun to watch, it's fun to play. I'm only a little bit older than you, Ryan. I graduated in 2002, and so this was when my reflexes were like at their peak, and I remember getting pretty good at Counter-Strike, spending a lot of time. If I tried to play it now, I don't even know that I'd be able to get decent, let alone to get good. By the way, side comment, Josh, if Ryan says he used to game in gaming cafes, I think he automatically qualifies as an older, mature gamer at this point.
Yeah, aww. I mean, the only thing beyond that is saying you used to go to the arcade.
Yeah.
Dang
gaming cafes. What a relic from the past. I love it. All right, Counter-Strike's a great pick, Ryan. I'm all about it.
All right.
Josh, you want to list your first game?
I'm gonna go a little outside the box, but people have heard me, but I'm still just spreading the word on this. Remnant 2. I mean, this is not just a fad for me. This is not a, flavor of the month. I mean, I just got done playing the DLC on this game. Remnant 2 is one of the best shooters that I have ever played, honestly, in my life. Now, I say that with the caveat that it is tailor-made for my tastes in a game. I love good variety of weapons. I like insane boss fights. I like good graphics. I like polish and audio and, all that stuff. Paul, you kind of mentioned it, where it's like that we started to see this blend of shooters and RPGs. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because, literally today, Disratory, longtime supporter and listener of the show, said, oh, I would consider that like an action RPG. And I like initially my brain was just like, no, it's a shooter, man. You're shooting guns the whole time.
Yeah.
But it does such a good job of introducing and utilizing those RPG elements. Like you're not leveling up and you don't have a party and that kind of stuff. But what you do have are, different skills that you can use. You have a huge variety of weapons, attachments, characters, builds. I mean, all this stuff that goes into the game. I know neither one of you have played this game, and honestly, it breaks my heart. I literally the other day, if my wife hadn't shot me down on this idea, because I actually brought it up to her, I said, I want to pretend to go legendary as a fake person and then do it again and make Paul and Ryan both have to play Remnant. And then she was like, cool, is that going to be paid for by the podcast? And I was like, no, that wouldn't, because then they'd know. And then she was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But I mean, this game it's perfection for what it is. Like, it's hard to explain, man, but people that have played it understand. I love seeing people in our Discord server talking about it. I know some people have picked it up recently and they're like, yo, this game is a ton of fun. The co-op nature of this game as well is absolutely phenomenal. If you are a Dark Souls fan, this is a no-brainer of a game. If you're not a Dark Souls fan and you're just a fan of shooters, it's still a no-brainer of a game.
Yeah, if I didn't hate the opening hours of Remnant from the Ashes, I would have been willing to give Remnant 2 a shot.
It's completely different. It's completely different, though. Like, it is everything that was good about that game, and they took away all the bad. Like, all of the drudgery and the dreariness and all that is just gone now.
Well, you'll have a chance one of these days with Force a Friend, Josh. Maybe we'll get around to it.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to force one of you, and then I'm going to go legendary out of my own pocket and make the other one play it.
We know how much Ryan hates Souls games, so for a game deemed Souls with guns, I wonder if the guns would be enough to draw in Ryan.
Ryan would absolutely lose his mind over this game. I guarantee it.
So?
I would put any amount of money that Ryan would play Remnant 2 and just be like, yo, this game is unbelievably good.
I'm sure I would. It's almost kind of like akin to like Paul with Ghost of Tsushima. Like we know he'd love it. It just he hasn't got around to it yet.
Right.
You know, and he'd love it when he plays, but I'm sure I would love Remnant 2, but just hasn't, clicked for timing yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, good pick, Josh. One of these days I'll have something more to add to it. All right. My number 5 on my list, it's a little bit of an older game. I think it's something that you may not immediately think of when you think of shooter, but it really set a lot of trends. I want to talk about the first Left 4 Dead. Now, there have been so many copycats of this game that I feel like you think about Left 4 Dead now and it seems overdone and it's oversaturated the market, but it's really hard to explain how revolutionary it was in 2008 when this first dropped. I mean, I looked up some critic reviews just for the fun of it, and this was the bottom line written by IGN. There's absolutely no doubt that Left 4 Dead is one of the most social and exciting multiplayer games that we have ever played. It's almost pitch perfect in how it captures the tension and the action of a Hollywood zombie movie. I mean, I loved Left 4 Dead. I remember buying it when it released. I loved playing in 4-person squads. I loved being able to communicate your way through it. It had fun characters that you played as. It had fun weapons. It had really clever bosses. Like, do you remember the witch and how the witch, you could see her, but if you got too close or made too much sound, you'd wake her up and everyone in the group would start yelling. Yeah. I mean, I just remember playing match after match and it never grew old for me. So I feel like Left 4 Dead, no one really ever talks about anymore because there's been so many knockoffs, but they invented the whole genre of squad-based PvE. Like, Deep Rock Galactic wouldn't be around if we didn't have Left 4 Dead doing this first.
Vermintide.
Let alone Vermintides, Darktide.
Back for Blood.
Alien Extraction or whatever that was, or Rainbow Six Extraction.
Yep.
I mean, so many of these games came because Left 4 Dead did that first. And they had the AI director. So even like adjusting your difficulty on the fly, adding enemies or taking them away, so revolutionary. I mean, Valve has always been one of the best developers, and Left 4 Dead was one of their best.
Yeah, that game, I mean, it was everything that you needed it to be. It was fun. It was chaotic. You had to rely on your friends, which made it even better because I don't like games that are like co-op in nature, but you all just split off and go your own direction.
Yes.
Because it's
you
like
have
we're
to
not
teamwork.
playing. Yeah. Like we're not playing together. We're just playing at the same time kind of thing. And so Left 4 Dead forced you into that teamwork kind of mindset, and you had to rely on your buddies. You'd get snatched. They'd have to come save you. You'd be low on ammo. They'd run over and res you. I mean, I loved that aspect and they pioneered it, man. And it's carried on forever since then too. So even as dated as that game feels, I'm with you in that it was honestly like genre defining game and still is to this day.
You guys want to hear something crazy?
You've never played it.
I don't think I've never played it.
Oh my goodness, man.
I missed that
one. What a great game.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think I'll force you to play it, Ryan, because it's 16 years old, but what a classic. Yeah, so much fun. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a short break, and we'll come back and we'll continue in our lists. All right, Ryan, coming back around to you. What you got next?
Well, speaking of old games and probably what I was doing at the time, this one probably has one of my favorite all-time levels in any video game, included with all the other gameplay with it. But Halo 3 is just an absolute all-timer for me. That end Warthog run, like,
dude, it's the best.
Yeah, it's the best level ever.
It really is, man. Dude, when you think about like an epic moment in video games, the end of Halo 3 trying to escape is honestly like right there at the top of my
I remember sitting on the couch with like a few friends, and we're all just everybody's on the edge of the seat, like you would watching a sporting game or something. The guy's going to kick the last field goal to win or make the shot in a basketball game or something. It was just like that, where every turn, as the panels are falling, you're running through. And then just I played so much Halo 3 online with my buddy Sean when we were younger. It was just one of those that I just could never get sick of it. I know I said that with Counter-Strike too, but it was just flawless for me.
Well, and you guys know what mode got added in Halo 3, right? Forge.
Forge. I was going to say,
I was
like, because 2 had the multiplayer. I'd say 2 is probably best known for its multiplayer, but 3 introduced Forge, which really changed the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and really added the longevity to it. Yeah, I think a lot of people would say Halo 3 was their favorite one.
Yeah.
I have a different Halo on my list coming up later, so I'll save that for now, but yeah, it's hard to make a top 5 list of shooters and not include a Halo game.
Absolutely, yep.
I figured Halo 3 would come up somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, Josh, swinging back your way.
All right. I do have a Halo on my list, but since Ryan just mentioned one, I will veer off a little bit. Let's go with Battlefield 2. I mean, we've had a lot of Battlefield in the news. I just got done talking about this on a recent Twig episode. I was not a Call of Duty guy. It's funny, I was talking to my coworker today. Literally the first Call of Duty game that I played was Black Ops Cold War, which released 3 years ago?
Really?
Something like that.
Right?
Pretty recent. Yeah.
Like, legitimately,
out,
I know
dude.
Ryan looks shocked right now, but it's like, he's like, wait, really? I was always a Battlefield guy. And that was the thing, right? I had nothing against Call of Duty. Like, I'm not anti-Call of Duty. It's just that, Call of Duty and Battlefield were always lockstep in their releases. And I was always just into Battlefield, man. I loved that large-scale nature. I liked the fact that they had the smaller maps if you just wanted to do infantry combat. I liked the fact that they had the different classes. Medic for life for me, because a good medic could change the tide of that game. Battlefield 2 was just perfection for me. The maps were great. At the time that I was playing, it had the server browsers. So I don't know if you guys remember, but you had these list of 1,000 servers. Do you remember what it was like to find a really good server? where
you
like
saved
there was
that. You
mods
saved
in
that
the
bad boy.
server, and you'd wind up playing with the same like 60 people, because once you found a good server, you would favorite it, and then you would always try to get in. And if your server was full,
You'd keep refreshing.
Yes, you'd literally
You
just
sit
keep
there and wait,
refreshing.
yeah.
Yep.
Occasionally, you'd venture into a different server, and they'd be like, "Ooh, gross!" Like, I'm going back to the other server. Like,
Sometimes it would say 63 out of 64. You double click it and it would take too long to load. It'd
Yes.
say server is full.
Yep.
Dang it. You'd have to go back and start over.
And so for me, that was the height, the pinnacle of Battlefield 2 for again, the reason for the server browsers, people would start to know you. They would squad up with you. You had the commander role in Battlefield 2, which I absolutely loved, because a good commander could change the flow of the game. Some of them sucked and they just didn't do anything. But man, you had a guy that was actually paying attention and would supply drop you or point you towards, a point, or call a UAV when you needed it, that kind of thing. I mean, I loved that aspect of like, I don't have to do the fighting right now. I just have to kind of like oversee and direct. And it was fantastic, man. So also, I still claim it to this day, best helicopter pilot you've ever seen in Battlefield 2. Man, it was so good. That was peak, like first person shooter, competitive, just fun gaming.
I have Battlefield 2 at number 1.
Yeah.
It's my number 1 shooter of all time.
Yeah. I hands down agree with you.
Yeah.
It's as much as I loved 1942 and Vietnam, the problem, or one of the problems with those games, is that you had so many people on the battlefield, but everyone kind of ran around like chickens with their heads cut off. Battlefield 2 is the first one that introduced squads. And how ingenious is it to say, we need to force people to play together. Let's put them in squads of 6. And of course, later they pared it down to 4. But being able to spawn on your squad leader forces you to stay together. Now, all of a sudden, you're playing with teamwork. You feel like you're an actual squad out there in Battlefield. I mean, it totally changed the game. I remember loading it up and just actually playing with squads. And for the medic, which I loved playing as well, this was the first game with the shock paddles.
Yep.
So instead of just being able to heal someone, which was hard because a lot of times if you're taking damage, you're going to die. But if you actually died, here comes a medic, hit you with the paddles, bring you back up. But what a fantastic game, man. Battlefield 2 is way up there for me.
It was peak, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could go back to those days, which is, one reason that we get so disappointed that Battlefield's just a shell of its former self at this point, too. I mean, there's a reason that we care, because we know how good it can be, and it just hasn't been that in so long.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all played it. I think we've all played every Battlefield that's come out. And yeah, 2's way up there. I personally probably prefer 4, just because I think I played a lot more of that. But yeah, same thing, having the commander role and then the paddles. I would love to go and just see how many, reses I could get or revives you could get in a match, just to climb that number up. But just one of those just pure fun shooters that just changed the game.
People knew how to play too, though. Like,
Yeah.
Paul, you mentioned it with a squad. You were playing, but like, I still remember the days when you were really pushing hard to try to capture a point. Your squad leader would hide because he knew that he was the key, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm the squad leader. You can only spawn on me, or you have to spawn way back at whatever other point it was and then try to hoof it back. So your squad leader, if he was good, would actually stay out of combat to a degree. I mean, sometimes, they had to participate, but like having that guy hiding in a room that you could just keep spawning on until you eventually like overwhelmed the defenders on that point was strategy, man. Like, I love the fact that you got to use your brain on some of this stuff. Not to count, like, man, the sniping in that game, like popping the enemy sniper that was perched up somewhere. I
Yeah.
mean, there was just so many good moments.
Oh, yeah. It was one of the first games I remember buying and playing at release like 8 hours a day for the first month, because this is before my kids were born. I had a lot of free time. My wife and I were working like opposite shifts. And I just remember crushing match after match after match. And it was really fun to sometimes just get a break and be the commander. And then sometimes you would just, go back and play as, medic or, whatever else. But yeah, Battlefield's great. We got to get another good Battlefield. It's been too long. We need a classic.
Please let it happen.
All right, so since I have Battlefield 2 as my number one, we can just skip me. We can come back around to you, Ryan. What you got up next?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna go with a game that I actually poo-poo on quite a bit, and I'm very vocal about it, but it also is very near and dear to my heart. I just hate what it became. I'm going with Destiny 2.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you'd go 1 or 2, but I figured it would come
Well,
up.
the thing is, I was actually talking to a buddy, and I was asking him, what would you think? Because we would play every night for hours. We would raid every Tuesday when the reset. We do all 3 characters. Like that was our life for years. And a lot of Destiny 1 is in Destiny 2, remade and everything. So I went with Destiny 2, but it was just one of those where, Bungie was they were on their A game in the beginning, and they just made such a fantastic game where all the raids were amazing. The boss fights were great. The combat, the guns, everything about it as a looter shooter was just perfect for me. And like I said, it definitely helped that we had a full squad of 6 that we would, raid every week on the same time. We'd all get on and play. And so it made it easy to enjoy, and then it made it easy to level up and get all the gear. So it was one of those that I think I literally have over 1,000 hours.
Look at you picking 2 Bungie games out of your first 3.
I know, right? What is this?
I slam Destiny 2 a lot, but I have
Me
to
too.
give them credit. I mean, I never really loved Destiny 2, and I never played Destiny 1 because if I remember, wasn't that PlayStation exclusive for the longest time, or always, if I remember right? But that game did so much right in the level of polish, the worlds, the raid mechanics. I get why people enjoy it. The thing that really disappointed me on that was the amount of bloat and fluff and I don't want to say disorganized, but why was everything instanced? Why was it you have these bounties, but then you have to go into your inventory to your bounty token? It just became so convoluted, and it didn't need to be that way, because the core of that game was absolutely incredible. The classes, the worlds, the shooting mechanics are freaking top notch, man. Yeah. Some of the what do they call them? Not the night raids. What do you call them?
Nightfalls.
Nightfalls. There you go.
Yeah.
I loved so much about that game, but it was really just ruined by some of the bloat and the convolutedness of it and stuff like that, where I just kind of went, you're so close, but it's just not there for me either,
Well, and that game played best if you played it along with each update. If you tried to pick it up too late, that's when it really felt kind of stupid and bloated. GTA Online fell prey to the same thing. After a decade of all these updates and added content, it just gets to be too much. I'm still getting ads all the time where they're like, you can buy a super yacht in GTA Online. I'm like, really? They're still adding more stuff to it? But to Destiny's credit, if you're just talking pure shooting mechanics,
yes,
Destiny 2, that's the first game I usually think of. No other game shoots guns better. Maybe some do it on par, but I don't think you can definitively say any game has better feeling shooting than Destiny 2.
Dude, so good. You come out with that Thorn hand cannon with the poison bullets, and you just get that 2 pop on the head. Dude, there's nothing like it from across the map. It's so good.
Yeah, really good game. I remember when we did a deep dive, Josh murdered Destiny 2, and you were shocked that I married it. And I said, this is one of those games where if you could only play one game and nothing else, Destiny 2 is a pretty good pick, especially if you love shooters, because there's just so much content. It's way up there.
And there's Vex Milk, so I always thought that was super weird, man.
There's a lot of weird things.
Good old Vex Milk.
All right, Josh, we're back to you.
Back to me. Okay, I know this has got to be on somebody else's list, but let's talk about the original Overwatch.
Oh, okay.
Man, dude, when Blizzard announced Overwatch, we all lost our minds. We were so hyped for that game. We counted down the days to release. I remember just, telling my wife and family, it's been good knowing you. You're not going to see me for like the next 4 or 5 days because this game is coming out and I am going to crack out on this game. I will never forget the first time entering a match ever and seeing that cast of characters with the little head icons. And it's like, which one do you pick? Who do you go with first? And I remember picking Zenyatta. I went Zenyatta because he looks cool, right? Like in the character portrait. And I was like, what is this guy? And then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But the original Overwatch is second to none in gaming to this day. I'm not going to go down the road of complaining about Overwatch 2 and where this game went. I'm just here to celebrate how great Overwatch was. I mean, Paul, you and I played the heck out of this game together with our extended friend group. This is, before Ryan was probably still playing Destiny at the time, but
he was on console.
Yeah.
Ryan didn't have a gaming PC at the time.
And I mean, there were more nights than not where we had a full 6-pack playing Overwatch, laughing, I mean, cracking up, having the time of our lives. It honestly kind of reminds me of like the old days of like GoldenEye with your high school buddies, and things like that. Like legitimately, it captured that feeling. I love character shooters. I love learning new characters. As soon as the gameplay starts to feel a little stale, I just go healer or I go tank, or something like that. This game lived a very, very good life. And I am still to this day, like very thankful and grateful for the fun that it brought to our friend group. And in my opinion, one of the best shooters ever made in that regard. I mean, if it's not at the top, it's super, super close to the top just because of how great the mechanics in the game were, the characters, the polish, the competitiveness. They had characters for everybody. If your aim sucked, how many times did we have friends that were like, dude, I'm terrible at shooters. And we're like, play Winston, go Junkrat. There's
Torb.
There's characters for everybody. You don't have to be good at shooters. Like if you were good at shooters, then there's characters for you as well. And then it was like, yeah, but I just I'm a good healer. And it's like, great, we need a good healer too. I mean, it literally had something for everybody.
See, this is why I didn't include Overwatch in my list, because I almost exclusively played Reinhardt, Junkrat. Early on, I played a lot of Symmetra back when you would be able to put out the 6 turrets.
And she could lock her beam, remember? Yep.
The lock-on beam. Yeah. How many times would you wipe the other squad of 6 once Sim got that beam charged up? It was nuts. Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite gaming memories of the last, 8 years is when we had so many friends playing Overwatch, we would do custom matches.
Yeah.
We would assign team leaders, like playing basketball on the basketball court, take turns picking teams, go into different Discord channels, and go play matches. And that was so funny because as fun as Overwatch is, nothing feels better than being like Lucio and booping like one of your buddies and then being able to brag about that after. Like we used to go crazy. So much fun. Gun game, I was less of a fan of. Like once they brought in, what did they call the Overwatch custom builder?
The browser, I think, the game
whatever
browser
they called
or something
it.
like that. Yeah, I know what you're
the
talking
Forge
about.
version of Overwatch. Everyone started playing gun game. That I did not like as much. That brought out like the whiny competitive side of me where I would quit because I would just get smoked and I'd be like, this is boring. But yeah, Overwatch is way up there. What a fun game.
Yeah, I didn't play nearly as much as you guys did, but there's something to be said for like what you said, Josh, where you could switch classes and get a refresher. Like a game that not only has a type of playable character for everyone's play style, when you get bored within the game, you don't have to go play something else to get a palate cleanser. You could just pick a different character. And so there's something to be said about that gets the longevity out of the game and makes it just so much more of an enjoyable experience. So yeah, I didn't get to, like I said, I didn't get to play as much as you guys did, but it was definitely, it's way up there. I can obviously state, how amazing it was.
Yeah.
I'll just never forget my first match picking Genji and being like, oh, I throw shooting ninja stars. I guess I'm a range class, because I was excited for Overwatch, but I didn't follow it closely. So I remember like standing behind tanks, just chucking the shurikens over and over. And then finally someone's like, like, are you going to go flank? And I'm like, dude, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I started watching guides and I was like, oh, I am playing this class very wrong and I am not good at it.
Paul, do you remember the early days there were no character locks? So you could have a team of 5 Winstons or something like that. Were you with us when we did 6 Symmetras on Hanamura? And we just put all the turrets. That was one of the funniest moments, I think, in gaming I've ever experienced.
There's 36 of them out there with a hard choke point.
Yeah.
So it was just the funniest thing in the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good times, man.
Great game.
Rip Overwatch.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a short break and then we'll come right back. All right. Coming back around to me. This is probably my most controversial game that I'm going to list here today. I felt like I had to include a battle royale, and I'm going to include PUBG.
Yeah. It's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah. I don't care how bad things got for a while, in particular when the cheating especially was out of control. I think PUBG is actually in a really nice place right now. To be clear, I have always said Apex Legends is the best made battle royale, but PUBG came out earlier. I played it way more. I clocked 1,000 hours of PUBG when it was just the first map. It was just Erangel.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't matter. Just played it over and over and over. We would play with our friends in squads. I would play duos with our buddy Andrew. We would just, every day, we would log in and play several matches of PUBG. I think that it totally changed the gaming landscape. There's no arguing about that. And that was even when the game played so bad with the rubber banding and all the issues. But all of the fun memories of us getting into vehicles and running around engaging in vehicle combat with other cars while we're all just laughing and cackling and calling out targets. I remember buying my first set of like 7.1 headphones or whatever to have better directional audio. So when you hear the gunshot, you were more likely to know where the enemies were. Like all of that felt so new and fresh. I felt like I had to put PUBG on my list.
It's on my list, and I am with you 100%. I pick on PUBG. I call it janky all the time. It's just a weird pacing, to this day when you're used to like Apex and Warzone and things like that. But dude, so again, some of my favorite gaming memories are exactly what you said. All of us hopping into PUBG, people were playing it every single night. You didn't have to question. You didn't have to set up and say, hey guys, how about we all hop on Friday night and play PUBG? People were just playing. It was that good. I mean, the stories that we get from that game, I'll never forget you with your Uzi finish where you took out like 4 guys and we were all losing our minds. Yeah. The Todd painting Andy in the back of the head story. The you never fearing a red zone and going, no, man, just drive through it.
No one ever dies.
And then of course, the one time, we get just absolutely obliterated when we were completely decked out. Pulling out your first win, the winner chicken dinner. I mean, that game did everything so well in such a bad way because again it was janky, man. But that just goes to tell you how good the game itself was. Dropping at what was that town in the top left?
Zarky or Georgia Paul?
Georgia Paul, that was it. We used to drop at Georgia Paul all the time. I mean, you had your drop zones, you had your strategies. Like you said, it was like a car chase out of like a movie when a squad in your squad would be driving around shooting at each other, I mean, just so many good, memorable moments in that game. I don't know how they did it. I don't know what the magic was at the time, but it's on my list. And you guys know, like I said, I pick on PUBG a lot, but it is up there, man. It's funny because I actually checked. I have 500 hours in PUBG.
Jeez.
That's a lot. That's a lot of playtime, man.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always great, but it was better more often than not.
I'm afraid to look. Let's see my hours. Oh my gosh.
Paul's going to
1,500.
15? I was going to guess like 13. So
I was going to say, because even now I know we had hopped in, maybe a month or two ago with Paul, but sometimes I'll have a short day and I'll be on the computer doing some stuff for some business work and my Steam will pop up and it's Paul's playing PUBG and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? In the middle of the day, he's always he'll say he goes and he has a minute or two, he'll hop into a match. So I fully expected PUBG to be on Paul's list today.
I still play it almost almost every day, at least 1 or 2 matches. I will say they have done so much in that game over the last couple years. There are now, I believe, 9 different maps. And kind of like earlier how I said, I like shooters when there's another twist to it. I love all the strategy. Like, are we going to follow the blue zone in, or are we going to go set up in that high ground? Are we going to go for the drop, or should we set up here and use it as bait for someone else? Are we going to go hide in this building? Or, like having all of those decisions while shooting at the same time is what I love. They've also added a lot of tech. So I love the fact that they have the blue chips. So if you get eliminated, you pick up your partner's blue chip, you can go bring them back in. You can now loot all these coins and share them on certain maps and go buy guns or armored vehicles. They've added a lot of stuff like that, or like self AED kits. So if you get downed, you can res yourself. All that stuff has just made it so much more fun. The shooting itself, of course, is nothing as good as Apex or Warzone or some of the others, but it's still my personal favorite, warts and all. All right, so let's see. Coming back around to you, Ryan, what you got?
Well, when you're looking for a purpose in life, you want to be part of something bigger. And so why not fight for Super Earth?
Yes, it's on my list. I was bringing it up next, Ryan. If it made it past you, I was totally bringing this up.
I was gonna say, I was like, I know somebody's got this. I was like, I better snatch it now before somebody else gets it. I know we've talked a lot on these different games we've brought up, just about the fun and the enjoyment and laughing and stories. And this is one of those games that brought that back in just force for me, where, like you guys said in the other ones, there wasn't a question. You were getting on Helldivers and seeing who else was on, and you'd sign up, and then you'd start playing together, and then you'd get somebody else on when they hopped on. And it was just an automatic, full of fun, full of chaos, full of craziness. And it was just that camaraderie and teamwork, and you had to play together, you had to coordinate. And again, I know I said it a second ago, but chaos. It was just madness out there, and I was 100% for it, completely taken back. I think I haven't played it, unfortunately, in like 2 or 3 weeks. I've just been so busy. I think I have like 150 hours or something, but it's just one of those that came in and just took over the landscape. Even with, you saw how passionate everybody was with all this Sony stuff, because this game meant so much to so many people. So it's definitely going to be an all-timer.
Yeah, it's on my list. And like I said, I was literally going to bring it up next.
Yeah.
It is very rare that a shooter, because let's be honest, a lot of shooters, especially the competitive ones, are super toxic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, but Helldivers bringing gamers together is part of the secret formula for that game. And you have to credit Arrowhead Studios for that, because the approach that they took was saying, hey, we're all working together, and the humor that they inject into the game, the over the top, it kind of, like, gamers just kind of latched onto that, man, and we said, yeah, like, I'm here for this. I am with you, and we're talking a top 5 games. This isn't like recency bias for me. I haven't played Helldivers in about 2 weeks. I'm kind of near the end of my cycle with that. It doesn't mean that I won't play if people are hopping in, but it's like I've done everything there is to do in Helldivers at this point. I've beaten Helldiver difficulty multiple times. I've done every mission. I have every unlock. So I'm just kind of at the end of the content portion. And I've done enough of the gameplay to where it's like, as much as I still enjoy it, I'm just ready for something different at this point. But that doesn't mean that the second they release a third race, that I won't be diving right back into Helldivers and going, guys, who's getting on? The Illuminati are out, or the Illuminate. They're out. Let's go. There's a new threat to Super Earth, right? And so this game is, again, another one of those games that's just tailor-made for me. The camaraderie, the chaos, the teamwork involved, the moments, right? Everybody's dead. You have no reinforcements left. The extract shuttle has 60 seconds to go, and there's your one buddy that is running around against an impossible horde of 3 Bile Titans, 5 Chargers, and 1,000 other little bugs. And everybody is just cheering him on, going go, go, and watching him dive into the extraction shuttle at the end and actually making it, and everybody losing their minds, is gaming perfection. It's just bliss to me to have that happen, and Helldivers 2 provides that opportunity.
There's definitely something to be said for the game when, Josh, we started this pod over 4 years ago, and I would say there are only 2 games that grabbed a huge group of friends long term, and it was Valheim and Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
Like, we had other games that were very popular for a short period of time, but these 2 had real long-lasting impact. And Helldivers 2, it's just way up there. The use of the stratagems is genius. Running around, inputting these codes is great. We talked about, in our deep dive, how I said it sounds so silly, but the dive mechanic is so central to how you play the game. And that sounds so dumb, but it's so well made and adds to the immersion. And the comedy, the humor, all of it's there. Even the opening tutorial is like truly hilarious. I mean, there's nothing you can say bad about Helldivers. Do you have like a single actual criticism of the game? I don't.
No, I want more content. But to be fair, they've been feeding us content since the game released. You know, so like I can criticize it, but at the same time, I can say, well, I mean, you're kind of doing that. I'm ready for the third race. Like that to me will refresh the game enough that it'll like, I will be like drawn back in versus the occasional like, let me play one round of Helldivers kind of point where I'm at right now. And again, that's nothing against the game. It's just that I've put in my time at this point.
They got a new race coming. They're called the Sony suits.
Yeah.
All the executives are just out there.
I will say I was heavily disappointed that you can't dive on your ship. Because when you're there, everyone's setting up there.
Oh, because you fall through it?
No, you can't.
You just can't
blocks
do
you
it.
out. Yeah.
It just doesn't let you. Because I want to just run in circles waiting for everyone. Because I'm like, let's go. I want to go kill bugs. And I just want to dive down the stairs or dive into people. And it doesn't let you dive on the ship. And that's...
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like while waiting for extraction.
No, like on your actual command ship.
On your actual home ship. Okay, I hear you. All right, coming back around to you, Josh. You got what, two left to list?
Yeah, we've got some overlap going on here. I'm going to bring up another game that I feel like is custom made for me. This one is probably going to make people go, huh? But it's, there are certain games that just click with you. And I feel like, it had everything I wanted in a game. Paul, you played this whole game with me, and it's a game called Outriders.
This is my number 3.
Is it? Yes.
Yeah, you keep stealing mine.
Right on, man. Again, dude, like, people are going to say Outriders and they're going to look up a review score and they're going to say, well, this game wasn't reviewed very well. Like, how can this be a top game for you? Outriders was everything that I wanted it to be. I remember seeing the trailers for this game. I remember getting excited for it. They did the big previews and all that kind of stuff, the different classes. We got very amped for it, Paul. I remember before the game ever released, we were talking. I was like, Paul, I kind of think I might want to play Trickster. Like, what are you going to go? Because we didn't want to pick the same class. Our buddy Andy played with us. Andy was like, I think that Pyromancer looks cool. You were, what was the Earth guy called? The Devastator. And so, but these classes were bananas, dude. The armor, the abilities, to this day, some of the coolest abilities I've ever seen in a game. I mean, hands down, dude. Like with the Devastator, you could punch the ground and then spikes would come up out of the ground and lift the enemies up on the spikes and they'd sit there and dangle for a minute. And you could shoot them like while they were on the spikes. My Trickster used time to manipulate things. So I had this like time blade where if I slash something, they would turn into a skeleton as if they had aged like 4 centuries and then explode for like massive damage. The mission structure, the loot in that game, the boss fights, the RPG elements, the levels, the skill trees for your classes, the builds that you could do. You could go skill-based builds. You could go weapon-based builds. It had everything you could want in a game. It had a little bit of grind, which was great because you wanted to keep playing. They had harder and harder difficulty levels. They called them world tiers, if I recall correctly. We were beating the highest and hardest world tier and the final boss fights and all that stuff. I mean, Outriders was magnificent. It came with a lot of flaws. So when you look at review scores and you say, huh, Josh, Outriders? I'm going to say, yeah, because it was buggy as anything. You guys remember, my guy would get stuck to where I couldn't run because of abilities that I would use. And you know what? It didn't matter. The game was that good with friends that it just didn't matter to me. So for me, Outriders is a top 5 game. I wish I could go back and play it all over again. There was an expansion. I tried to dive into it. I had been out of it for so long. I didn't remember any of my builds or gear or kind of even the flow of the game anymore. And so I just kind of went, I'm just going to keep my good memories of this and not try to force it. But what a masterpiece, man.
Outriders for me is kind of like Helldivers 2 for Ryan. Outriders was kind of like Remnant 2 for you. This game felt custom made for me. It was part sci-fi, it was part action, it was part fantasy. You truly had RPG elements, like to the extent that if you look up this game on Wikipedia, they have it as an RPG, which I think is nuts. This is a shooter, first and foremost, but it does have very heavy RPG elements, and it's one of the best cases where you have action shooting with RPG being married together in a cohesive way that makes sense. Like you mentioned the different skill trees. You had 3 main different builds within each of the 4 classes. So in essence, you had 12 different classes or way of playing, but they all played completely different. I would go so far as to say, I think this is the most inventive shooter ever made. I think that like the Halo games and the Battlefield games are bigger. They are, in some ways they have better shooting mechanics, but Outriders was so creative in building out their classes and the different abilities they gave you. Every ability was like something I had never seen in another game outside of the class that would plop down some like turrets.
Okay, what was that class? Engineer? It wasn't engineer. Technomancer, that was it.
Technomancer, yep. Yeah.
And
that's what I started with and hated it. So like other than that, pretty much everything else seemed very novel to me. And the fact that you didn't just have the skill trees, you had a million guns, which all had different attachments. So part of the grind was, I just unlocked this new attachment. Now I have the ability to completely rework my character because that attachment is central for this other build. And next thing you know, it's like you're playing a different game. I mean, Outriders, I had 0 of the bugs that you guys did. I never got stuck. I never had issues sprinting. I never had the issues like our poor friend Jared, whose inventory all disappeared and couldn't play. I didn't have any of that. I just trudged along and played a perfectly made game, and I could not have had more fun. I think it's number 13 on my leaderboard, and honestly, it might be a little low. The longer time goes on, the more fond my memories are, and maybe that's rose-colored glasses, but what a fun game. Fun bosses. Everything about that game was just awesome.
You talk about like raid type mechanics with Destiny or something like that, or Remnant 2 even, like Outriders had that. You had to strategize with your teammates. You had to figure out these fights, and I just remember thinking like, this is crazy, man. What a cool, mechanic or encounter, the level design. The fact that you could just keep increasing the difficulty of the world tiers so that even though your build, you were doing 1 million DPS a second, it still felt new and good because you were still then getting gear, like you said, would be build defining at that point.
And the time goals. So it's like, not just can you beat this world tier, can you do it in less than 9 minutes? And that's when things would get nuts, when we would strategically split up and grab different mobs and have all these different strategies. Also, don't forget the fact this was one of the earlier games that had the mechanic where you could only heal if you were out there doing damage.
Yes.
So instead of hiding behind cover like every other game used to do, you were encouraged to go out there and fight because that was the only way you could heal. Ryan, I don't think you ever even played Outriders,
I was going to say, I'm still here, guys.
Does this make you want to play it?
Yeah, go get a room. Jeez. No, I mean, hearing you guys gush over it, and I'm looking at a lot of the stuff now. I mean, this looks like my game. I don't know how I missed this one, but it's just seems like it hits on all the targets that I like.
Dude, I would almost be willing to just play it from the beginning. Like I said, I tried to go back and play it, and my builds, like I don't remember a thing. But Outriders is that much fun that I would totally be down to just say, let's start all over and have some fun.
Oh,
I finished Spiritfarer today, Josh. So
let's do it.
I don't know. I got some time.
Is this happening? Is this happening?
Oh man,
maybe.
I wonder if my trickster is still bugged. You think I'd be able to actually teleport? You know?
Yes. I'm sure it's fixed by now. It would have to be. We haven't played it in 2.5 years. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take one last break, and then we'll come back and share our last game each. All right, Ryan, coming back around to you. What you got left?
Oh, man. Save the best for last, I guess. I mean, like I said, I didn't really put all these in order, but this is a big one that was, again, right in that wheelhouse and right in that timeline. And I think it was very impactful on gaming as a whole with the new engine, but I'm going to go with Half-Life 2.
Yeah, it's on the
good
list.
pick.
That was one where not only was just the story and the gameplay and the mechanics and everything was just out of this world. I remember watching the original like trailer where you just go through the cave and you see the water reflections and you see all the new world and how absolutely breathtaking, we thought it was at the time and how amazing it looked. It just, it changed things for me. It was 2004. So I was like 16. So I had a car, I could go out, hang out. I was just playing Half-Life, man. That's all I wanted to do. Me and my friends, again, we'd go to the internet cafes or we'd hang out at home and LAN or just do whatever. We would build maps. We'd get the map builders. It was just, it was fun online. It was an amazing story. It was great campaign and single player. And I think it just made such an impact. I mean, look at this, 39 Game of the Year awards, one of the best games ever made. It was, it was just, there's just so much to be said about it, and it's an all-timer.
It was the game that blended every element perfectly, and it was very technologically advanced with like the physics of the game, and like if you smashed a crate you could see all the little pieces of wood like fall down and stuff like that.
Gravity gun,
again played into the physics of the game, which people really hadn't seen before.
Picking up the saw blades and launching them and they stick in the wall, like you're just like, whoa.
Incredible story, great like protagonist, really cool world. I mean, the Striders, dude, watching the Striders walk over the city, like it was mind blowing. I mean, that game did literally everything right.
Citizen.
Yeah.
And for those keeping score, that means that we've now listed 3 Valve games.
Dude, Valve knows how to make a
Half-Life
game.
2, Counter-Strike, and Left 4 Dead.
Wait, 3 Valve, 3 Half-Life 3?
Portal 3?
Oh. Portal 3?
Yeah, Valve knows how to make them. Those are some classic games. Even like Team Fortress, I kind of wondered if that might pop up or something.
TFC
but
was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Valve made such great games. I mean, Half-Life 2, I think if we had to sit down and make our Mount Rushmore top 4 games of all time, I kind of feel like Diablo 2 and Half-Life 2 are probably the first 2 games that all 3 of us would agree on. Because we might argue a little bit about like Red Dead 2. Josh doesn't like it quite as much. I don't quite like God of War 2018 quite as much as you guys. But I think all of us would agree Half-Life 2, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
All-time game.
It's 5 on my leaderboard.
What are you going to say bad about Half-Life 2? It's so well made. Everything about it's almost perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, coming back to you, Josh, what's your last pick?
Here's the problem. I'm really torn here because, like, I don't want to steal one from Paul, but I mean, I'm thinking Borderlands 2, but then how do we not talk about a Doom game when we're talking about top 5 shooters of all time? There's another Halo that I wanted to mention. I am going to say Doom Eternal.
Okay.
Nice.
And again, I don't know that Doom Eternal is going to top a lot of people's lists, but if you were looking for a pure shooter we talked about the mechanics of Destiny 2, and I'm with you. I think Destiny 2 is some of the best gun mechanics you've ever seen in a video game, but there's another game where the gun mechanics are absolutely on par with that, and it's Doom Eternal. I mean, for what that game tries to do, which is just be a simple, pure shooter that is fast-paced, fun, and challenging. Doom Eternal accomplishes everything that it set out to do. Banging soundtrack for that game. Incredible optimization and graphics and all that stuff as well. But when you come to the speed and the weapons and the different monsters that you encounter and the different level varieties, the jump puzzles, that kind of stuff, it hits on all cylinders. It's one of the few pure shooters that I actually went back and played again. I don't know if you guys remember, but maybe about 6 months ago, I was like, I'm playing Doom Eternal again, guys.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
You know, and I upped the difficulty level, and it's hard. It's challenging. There's secrets everywhere. There's all kinds of exploration that you can do to find the little, the skulls or the little character, like the little bobblehead guys and stuff like that. Incredible boss fights. It's got everything, man. So when we're talking about just at its core, like the elements, you know, on the periodic table of what a shooter is, Doom Eternal for me stands out as like, it's hydrogen, man. It's the perfect like base for any other shooter like mechanics out there.
And id is still out there crushing it all these years. Like if anyone said in my top 5 favorite shooters of all time, you wouldn't blink an eye if someone said Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. Any of those are valid nominees. I'm not surprised at all. I did not beat Doom Eternal. I did enjoy my time with it, which was only a couple hours, and I just had to move on because we do this podcast and I didn't play it at release. But yeah, I feel like we would be remiss if at least one of us didn't bring up Doom.
Yeah.
Got to. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, bring us home.
All right. Well, this was officially my number 2 since, you know, Battlefield 2 was my number 1 and we covered that early. All right. I said earlier I had a Halo game that we haven't brought up yet.
Oh.
And I'm going to go with the one that I think evolved combat of the shooter genre.
Yes.
I'm going with Halo Combat Evolved.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it's the best Halo, but I am saying I bought an Xbox solely to play Halo, and I have never done that with any other game in my life. It was that good. A little bit kind of like how I said Left 4 Dead made so many clones. I mean, Halo, how many games have been called Halo clones or a Halo killer, and none of them live up to the hype. I mean, Halo was just so freaking good. Ryan, you and I played so much of our teenage years just playing 2v2 or 1v1v1v1 on a single TV. I mean, sniping on Blood Gulch.
Oh,
like how many hours do you think we did that?
So many hours. Mean, snipers, pistols only. Yep.
Yeah. Snipers, pistols on Blood Gulch. Like we spent so much time doing that. I don't know if they invented the sticky bombs, but it's the first game I remember having sticky bombs. Nothing was more satisfying than landing a good one. And the campaign was fantastic, and you could do that co-op. So here you got a fantastic story, fantastic music, fantastic gunplay. That was another big thing too, is the different kinds of weapons. This is not like, well, here's a battle rifle, and here's a sniper, and here's a pistol. I mean, you had stuff like the Needler, which would home in on the target. You had your plasma pistol, which was more effective against shields. You know, and that was part of the strategy too. Like you might use one weapon to work down the shields and then switch over and get a headshot or two and, you know, kill your enemy. All that stuff worked so incredibly well. I mean, even the fact that all the red versus blue stuff took off.
Oh, so good.
And I know that we've mentioned it on the show once or twice before. That's pre-YouTube days. Like this is when you would have to find these videos on the web and download them. And I just remember, like, Ryan, how many times did you and I yell to each other, do you like Angelina Jolie? She's got enormous lips.
Just thinking, I like Angelina Jolie. She's got enormous lips.
Like, we would just run around and quote Red versus Blue.
I voted for Nader. No, Donut.
Yeah.
Those.
So I feel like we had to have a couple Halos. So Bungie and Valve here, I think, are the big winners, having 3 games each that we listed.
Dude, for sure. And then, I mean, even with, remember when we got those multiple Xboxes and we had a few TVs set up at your parents' house? When we came over and we did that LAN, like, that took a lot of work back then. It wasn't as easy to link up with people and just play together. And, you know, to do that and the amount of fun and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't anything that you got bored of or just dragged on. And like you said, the music, so many of these games, all of those factors, when they come together, you know, just make just something that's legendary and perfect in that. And that is so significant in a point in your life that you just think of fondly. Every time you think back to it, you know, man, that was some great times playing this. Remember when we do that? Remember when we do this? So yeah, it's gotta be up there for sure.
Halo was the console seller. I'm with you, Paul. I mean, I'm a little bit older, so my wife and I, Halo came out in 2001. All right. And my wife and I had just got married in 2001. And we were poor. I was just graduating college. So, I mean, no money, college student. And here's me trying to convince my wife that we need to spend $300 on an Xbox so that I can play Halo. And she was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Now, thankfully, my wife has always supported my gaming. So she was like, ultimately like, yeah, okay, if you want it, get it. But Halo was the reason. This was what sold Xbox, man. And you know what? Didn't regret it one bit. That game was absolutely mind-blowing, dude. I remember thinking like, this is the greatest experience. I'm so glad I got an Xbox, man. I can't believe how great this game is.
Well, and it's so crazy because Microsoft was not confident in the project. They did not think this was going to be a console seller. It just caught on. I mean, Bungie even had fights with Microsoft over the name Halo. Microsoft was like, people are going to think it's a religious game or it's about angels or something. You can't call it Halo. And that's why they called it Halo: Combat Evolved, which is like so much worse than just calling it Halo.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine now in hindsight that they had to like fight that battle? Bungie, they had to fight and win and say, we're not changing the name. I even read today when I was looking at some, facts you may not know about Halo, that they even had research done that told them that their artwork was wrong. The logo for Halo was bad. They said, you have to change all this because it's not going to sell. And Bungie just covered it all up. They didn't even share the reports with Microsoft. And it's one of the best games ever made. Oh. So, it just shows Bungie, especially at the time, had incredibly talented people with a clear vision. And man, did they give us a great product that defined the entire generation
really
of that
did.
Xbox.
Yeah, Halo. Yeah. I mean, man, what name a more iconic gaming franchise? I mean, Call of Duty, Halo, Battlefield. These are like your upper echelon. You can't say Halo and somebody's like, what game?
Exactly.
Like, or even my kids know what Halo is.
Yeah. Or you just play those monks. The music, and everybody knows what that is. Dude. And like, I was always, my family, we always had PlayStations, but I remember because I would play with Paul and stuff over at Nikki's house, and I wanted an Xbox so bad, but I was 13 years old, so I didn't have any money to buy an Xbox. And my little sister had braces, and at the orthodontist, they had a raffle. And she won the Xbox. And I was so stinking excited. I was like, yeah, I have an Xbox. And she's like, what do you mean? It's my Xbox. I was like, I'm playing this thing. And I snatched that bad boy up. And I played so much Halo on that thing. I was more excited than probably anything for a long time when she won that thing.
I can't. That's crazy.
I know, right?
Anything like that.
Yeah. Oh man, so many good shooters out there. I love that you already mentioned Borderlands 2, Josh. So even though none of us picked it, that one has to be mentioned. And Gears of War, kind of taking a big L here that none of us brought it up. But I was going to say, same way Halo sold Xboxes, Gears of War sold a lot of Xbox 360s. And I would say for me, that's definitely right up there with everything else we've listed. Even a couple other outside the box picks, super hot.
Yep, it's
for
on
VR.
My list. Yeah,
like the whole idea of like when you don't move, time stops, and how you have to like play that as a shooter is pretty inventive. And Splitgate, I feel, is criminally underrated for like online multiplayer shooting.
Yeah, time splitters. Time
splitters
too.
Great.
Perfect Dark, obviously, but yeah, all great. Yeah, this has been fun, guys.
Yeah, we always mention GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, so I think all three of us were like, someone else will probably mention it, and we talk about it all the time, so I'll leave it off my list, and here no one brought it up.
There's going to be games people are like, I can't believe you didn't bring this up. I mean, number one, limited time, we're trying to keep the list to 5. I mentioned in the beginning, like, it's really, really hard to pare a list down, to just 5, so obviously some caveats have to be made there as well. It's a memorable genre. I still love it to this day. I'm with you, Paul. I don't like Valorant and the sweaty ones anymore. It could just be, maybe back in the day I would have, but now it's not what I'm looking for, in my gaming time kind of thing. But To me, the fusion of shooter and RPG, I mean, I mentioned Remnant 2, Outriders, Half-Life 2, like that is like the pinnacle of gaming to me in a lot of ways. When you can marry those two genres in like a really good way, it's like gaming nirvana for me.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to talk about shooters. We haven't really covered a lot of shooters lately, so I'm glad we had the opportunity. To all of our listeners, please remember to rate our show 5 stars. Go take a look at Patreon support options at multiplayersquad.com. That'll unlock your bonus episodes and all kinds of other stuff. Also, come join our free Discord community. Let us know what shooters you love, maybe something that we left out. There's an invite link in the episode description. And make sure to follow us on socials at Video Gamers Pod. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. And until next time, happy gaming.
See ya.
All right. See you, everybody.